Hi there, welcome to part 14 of Julian Huxley's Essays in Popular Science and Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. In part 13 I mentioned a chap called Desmond Morris. And he was lived in England, or I don't know if he still does, and he was a zoologist, and he was interested in the study of human social biology. Which is right on par with what we're looking at here with Aldous Huxley. He studied at Oxford University. He was researching into animal behaviour and reproductive behaviour. And like I said, he was comparing, looking at, I believe, animals living in an artificial environment, and he was saying, well, we're animals too, obviously, and we live in an artificial environment, and their behaviour is modified because of it, and it's also strained, certain abnormal behaviours, he was saying, happen in caged animals in zoos. Sexual behaviours and perversions happen, and he's saying they happen here as well with human society, or should I say Western human society, which is really, we're in the middle of, I believe, we're in the middle of Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. We are moving into a scientific dictatorship, no doubt, and we're as free spirits, as wild, whatever wildness is left in us, there is that spirit of rebellion, isn't there? It's just natural. I mean, it's natural, isn't it, when you're at school? You always get the naughty kid in the lessons and the assemblies, the one that always answers back to the headmaster, and everyone goes, "Oh my God." I used to think, I'm glad that's not me. But looking back, that's just natural, isn't it, to answer back to an authority? That's what being wild is. If you're a caged animal, it's natural to be able to shake those bars and try and rattle the cage, and say that you don't like your servitude. Aldous Huxley wouldn't like that, would he? And I was reading here about these erotic play, they call it, in this book, about encouraging children to engage in sexual activities, and it doesn't really say why, although it later on, one of the mottos is "everyone belongs to everybody else," and that includes socially and all levels, and it includes sexually as well. In A Brave New World, everybody sleeps with everybody else. There's no such thing as monogamy. Everyone's completely promiscuous, and there's no emotional attachments really whatsoever. That is very that's wrong to them. If you sleep with a person and you sleep with them more than kind of several times in a row, and you start to kind of form even a sexual connection with that person for a few months, that is abnormal. You don't do that, because everyone belongs to everyone else. Basically, there's no jealousy. People don't get jealous, and this is because in A Brave New World, I believe they've lost the pair bonding that naturally happens with human beings. And Desmond Morris, this chap here, Human Zoo and The Naked Ape, and I think he's wrote a few others. These are quite old books, I'm sure they're in the 70s. He really goes into this in detail, and I'm not going to go into these books now. I might do another videos on the topic of pair bonding, and using Desmond Morris's good work here, because he goes, I mean, you can speculate on this yourself, but he goes into the way that humans are designed, the way that we mate face to face naturally, the way that we kiss, lips. This is purely for drawing attention. This is an erotic zone. Lips are an erotic zone, because it's encouraging us to form an emotional connection with one another. So that's why the women wear lipstick. That's why we have lips. And they say that even our faces, we flush when we're aroused. We can be aroused, by touch of the earlobes and the neck and all of these things. The women's breasts are on the front of their bodies, to encourage the man to look at the face as well, even though it probably doesn't work with me, but good try. But yeah, it's encouraging couples to copulate face to face, to engage so that they can look in each other's eyes and they can, form a pair bonding process. Because as I was saying, and as the director of hatcheries, or whatever his name was complaining about, is that his subjects take too long to physically mature. He wishes he could just speed up the process like a horse or a cow or something like that. And this is, we take a long time probably to mentally mature, but even longer to physically mature, and so that's why the parents have to be there for a good 18 years, I'd say, or 15 years or 20 years, but not like apes. Apes are born quite strong, aren't they? They can hold on to their mothers, and they're fairly, dependent creatures, as we're very vulnerable, and it just comes with being human. So that, the scientists in this book they're doing away with that, because if you speed up the growth and have the intelligence how you like it, you don't need families, obviously, do you? The pair bonding process is, is probably intimately connected to the time it takes for human beings to actually mature into adulthood and be dependent and strong enough to look after themselves. As I was saying, Bertrand Russell was apparently, I looked at, as I said, I looked at Alan Watts' work, and because I get a lot of. Previously, I'd researched it and came across it, but he goes into it's really good work, goes into good detail about it, and he was saying I think it's Bertrand Russell, even conducted experiments in schools where this was going on with prepubescent children. He was encouraging them to engage in sexual activity to break that pair bonding. Because as I said, once they engage in that, they're going to find it very difficult, or maybe impossible, to actually cement together meaningful relationships. And you can see this with the, with pornography. I think that helps to break pair bonding. The sex is just for release. It's got nothing to do with intimacy, and romance is another one he mentions here. Mentioned earlier on, I think, somewhere in the videos, about the 1920s, how the miniskirt came in, and there were, alcohol and smoking and encouraging people to gyrate when they dance and all of that. That was Adam Watt brought that to attention to me, and then the swinging 60s and all that, and free love. This is exactly the kind of thing Brave New World's talking about, but they're encouraging free love to non-pubescent children in the form of what they call erotic play. So, going to continue on. You got the boy that was not enjoying the erotic play, and the girl, was oblivious. She thought it was normal, and then so they send the boy off to the assistant superintendent of psychology to see if he's anything abnormal about the boy. And so he asks her name. She says Polly Trotsky, and he, reading on a little bit, he says, a very good name too, said the director. He says, run away now and see if you can find some other little boy to play with. The child scampered off into the bushes and was lost to sight. And he mentions the exquisite little creature, said the director, looking after her. Then turning to his students, he addresses them here. He says, what I'm going to tell you now, he said, may sound incredible, but then, when you're not accustomed to history, most facts about the past do sound incredible. And here we're going to go into, now we're going to continue on this erotic play, and then we're going to move. They're going to talk about the family unit and the old system of the past, about how families are made, etc. But here he said, he let out the amazing truth for a very long period before the time of Ford. And Ford, you've got Ford Motors, haven't you? And they've used Ford as the kind of the beginning of this new kind of Brave New World, because he was into mass production, I believe, with motor cars and things like that, and they used it as an inspiration for the mass production of human beings. And his sign is the T. It's almost like they took the top of the Christian cross, and the Christian cross can represent the old world order, and the old value system, and then Ford is the new value system. So I think he's called Lord Ford. You know, he's like almost like a figurehead or a godly, person. Yeah, and he said here, so for a very long period before the time of Ford, and even for some generations afterwards, erotic play between children had been regarded as abnormal. Ooh. There was a roar of laughter, and not only abnormal, actually immoral too. Could you believe that? Mm. And had therefore been rigorously suppressed. And I think it needs to be suppressed, does it? A look of astonishment appeared on the faces of his listeners. Poor little kids not allowed to amuse themselves. They could not believe it. Even adolescents, the DHC was saying, even adolescents like yourselves. Not possible. Barring a little autoeroticism and homosexuality. Absolutely nothing. So homosexuality is brought in here, and that's a good point, because with homosexuality you don't really produce, do you? It's just sex for sex's sake. So homosexuality is another interesting aspect. That's becoming more accepted today, isn't it? Certainly as the years go by. I mean, I've got nothing against what people do to consenting adults, but you got to wonder: is there an agenda with homosexuality? Just thought bring that up. Yeah, and talking about the old way, here it says, in most cases, they weren't allowed to engage in any activity. They were 20 years old or something. So, and they, they're in disbelief. They can't believe how to them it's ridiculous. And here he's talking about having a. Let's see if I can pronounce it right this time. A viperious mother. That's the thing of the past in here. And there's more on this. The family. He really goes into the family, and he's mocking the family. It's a disgusting thing having families. And he talks about that here. So I'm going to go into that in the last few chapters. I know I said it's the final few chapters, and I've really milked this, haven't I? But I hope you have found this interesting. And in the last few chapters, I'm going to go into about the deterioration of the family here, and how they see that as taboo, and then we're going to have some kind of final thoughts and reflections upon all of this, to try and make you think, and we'll discuss that in part 15.